Welcome to the Endless Entrepreneurs YouTube channel. My name is Luke Henson. I have not made a video in quite a while, but I resell on eBay, Amazon, Poshmark, Mercari. I buy and sell liquidation primarily. I use this channel to document kind of that business. I also have a rental property. I invest in real estate, and I work full-time doing a 9 to 5 in the corporate finance world. So kind of juggle all of those. And I haven't been live here in a while. I'm sorry, I'm just in my camera. I got a brand new computer, so pretty pumped about it. Video quality is great. Still getting all my settings back from the way they were. So trying to get that. If anyone's in the chat and can just make sure that they can hear me, it looks like my volume's good, but that's great. We are live right now. I have not done a 2018 recap. I've been pretty active on Instagram this year, but I've taken really January to level set my business, make a bunch of changes, learn from last year. I've just been scaling very fast, and so it's taken a while to just kind of. I really took this first part of the year to focus and get everything going the way that I wanted. So, in any case, thank you for stopping in. If you're rewatching this later, chat should be up. You should be able to see what the interactions were. I'm going to go through successes, I'm going to go through failures, kind of what I learned, what's different. And I'll touch a little bit on 2019 goals, and then I'll do some Q&A as usual. So hopefully this will be helpful. Hopefully it'll be a little motivational for some of you. I know a lot of people who follow my content also work full time. I've been building and kind of been at this for many years. Basically it's my nighttime weekend hustle. Real estate's kind of my passive hustle. I have one rental property now. We're looking to add a second. And so this is kind of, really what I like to do in my spare time. I don't sit still well. So someone just said, Aaron asked if my YouTube revenue improved since speaking about real estate. No, actually my real estate related content is the least viewed content on this channel. So it just goes to show what my audience really wants to see, which is good, which is fine. But I pretty much, at the end of the day, I talk about the things I want to talk about. So I still will have content around that. But in any case, and sorry, I keep adjusting things here as I get from familiar. My old computer was ancient and archaic, I guess is the best way to describe it. This is new and shiny and lots of features, so just trying to figure all that out as I go. In any case, so let's just run through some 2018 successes. I'm going to jump right in with that. So the first is I had just under 100,000 in combined gross sales across all my platforms. And when I say all my platforms, by the end of the year, I was selling on 3, so 4 kind of Amazon, but I didn't really have any sales in there yet because I just set my first shipment in like the end of the year. But eBay, Poshmark, and Mercari combined was it's like 96 and some change. So a little disappointed, honestly, that I didn't hit 100K. It's kind of arbitrary, right? Like it's that number target in your head that I put so much value around. Really doesn't mean that much. I mean, at the end of the day, it's how many dollars I'm actually putting in my pocket from a net profit standpoint. I don't talk about my numbers a lot. And actually, for those of you who follow me on Instagram, you see I don't really post my numbers that much anymore. Just because I've really found that focusing in on other people's numbers doesn't help your business. And so I don't want to be a distraction or discouraging to anyone who's growing their business. I do want to share them every now and then just to show what's possible as a part-time reseller. Because I think a lot of people are in that same journey or path of, balancing their full-time gig with whatever they're doing. So I do want to show what's possible in that, but I just don't want to talk about it all the time. But I thought this was an appropriate video to do that. So like I said, just under 100,000, and that's at about a 38% operating profit. So pretty good. I chose personally to reinvest almost every dollar of profit this last year back into additional inventory, into outsourcing a lot of my outsourcing further things in my business that I could, kind of one-time costs, lots and lots of shelving, lots and lots of bins, new storage, all these things that I reinvested the money into to grow my infrastructure. Because basically what I've set up this last year is, and I'll talk about this kind of my next success, is I've set up and landed a supplier that pretty much can provide me more inventory than I can handle right now, which is great. And so I've set up kind of the infrastructure to handle a significant portion of it. I'm kind of offloading some of the other stuff that I can't to other local resellers when it's too much. But really the things holding me back are enough people, right, to process and list all that inventory, and then the space to store and fulfill the sales when they happen. So what I did in 2018 was I took pretty much, like I said, every dollar of profit I made, which is the bonus of working full time and doing this in, in your spare time is that I can reinvest that money. I don't need it for things. And I bought all the infrastructure that I could. So, like I said, I mean, most of it went into like shelving and bins, and I have a new storage that's a 10 by 12 out there, plus my detached garage. Lots of different tools and things that are just basically not splurging, but really spending up on the infrastructure to handle and be more efficient as I grow. For perspective of kind of the size of my business, for those of you who might be new or tuning in, I have about 10,000 pieces of inventory actively listed. It's about just under 3,100 active listings. So right now, like I said, I've physically housed 10,000 pieces of apparel and operate 100% out of my home right now. And that's going to grow a ton because right now at capacity, I'm going to pretty much be listing about 1,000 to 1,200 items every month. I'm selling about 5. Actually, I need to look at February because February looks like it's going to be my best month ever as a reseller, which is really cool. But I'm selling somewhere between like 450 and 550 a month. So pretty much listing double what I'm selling right now, which is why I need that additional infrastructure. So definitely a success of the sales and definitely a success landing my supplier. Want to touch on the supplier piece because I think honestly, like, the hardest part about scaling as a reseller isn't the listing, isn't the photography, isn't really any of the parts of the business besides finding the right inventory in the right amount and the steady enough supply to sustain and grow your business. Like, that's what I figured out from trying to take that step from being that solo person who went to Goodwills every weekend. I'd hit 5, 6, 7, 8 Goodwills. I was sourcing, a couple hundred things a week, listing it. Like, all that was so much work and time. But to get to that next level where I have 1,500 pieces at my fingertips of brand new, and this is like brand new with tags, like a lot of activewear. I mean, I'm getting new with tags, Under Armour, Nike, North Face, Columbia. Those are the staples of my supplies that the supplier that is giving me. Adidas, all those type of things. And I'm getting them. It depends on the quality of the order, but anywhere between like $5 a unit up to $8 a unit. Usually floating around like that, like $650 plus shipping. It seems to be like the general cost that I'm hitting at. For some really high end stuff, like occasionally we'll get like a North Face liquidation and things like that. I'm paying up a lot more for them. But in general, like the average, kind of falls in there. And he's really good. Like, I literally have a handshake with a supplier. Met him a couple times in person, seen his operations, massive operation. He pretty much hates dealing with apparel, period. He hates apparel buyers. He says we are the worst buyers to deal with from liquidation. We're the pickiest. And the value proposition I was able to offer him, and this is a real tip. I don't know if you guys follow Prince on Instagram. He's got a massive operation. He's a great dude. He talks a lot about relationships and, nailing them down with the suppliers and, what can you offer them, right? You can't just expect them to give you the best deals like for nothing. And the value proposition I've given is I will take all the apparel off your hands no matter what. I'll find homes for it. Even if I can't handle it, you just give me fair pricing every time. We won't have to barter back and forth. You grade it. You give me the fair pricing. I won't argue. I'll take it all off your hands. I'll find something to do with it as long as you commit that I get all of it. You're not going to break it up and sell it to other people. I'm not going to compete with other people. You're just going to give all of it to me. And he's like, deal. He goes, that makes my life easy. I can't stand it. I make way more money on the hard goods and everything else I move. I don't like, this is just in my way, basically. And so I offered that solution to him, and that's how I've gotten in this position. I do expect over time that I'll be able to get lower pricing. And, I'm kind of working on that with him right now. I've been a really, I would say, good buyer for him. And, is there a way we can wiggle down, things like that. But in general, like, I get a ton of DMs all the time. Like, who do you source from? How do you find your suppliers? And it's like, it really comes down to just the hard trench work of like DMing and messaging every liquidation company you can find, finding some type of value proposition you can give them and getting that relationship. So kind of soapbox that I'll step down. Hopefully that gives some perspective to people. But that was probably, like, in my mind, that was my biggest win for 2018. Like, from a business perspective, being able to land that and never have to worry about sourcing again. Like, I don't worry about, am I going to have enough stuff? I don't worry about, am I going to find good enough stuff? Like, that's no longer a worry. All I worry about now is getting the stuff processed into my listers or to my photographers, making sure that my VA has a steady volume to keep her busy on a regular basis, because that's important to me. Like, you have people counting on you for a certain volume, and it's like I have a great responsibility, and I take a lot of pride in trying to make sure that I fulfill that because they're counting on it. So like that's what I spend all my time on now. Now that I've kind of solved that sourcing equation, and I have some backup suppliers, and the one in public I talk about is Smash Lots. They've done some good filler orders. I mean, definitely not like I wouldn't build your business around something like Smash Lots, but I think that they're a great filler if you ever your pipeline got dry for a second. Like they're a great filler, but that's not something I would build my entire business around. And I have no problem saying that. And Jasper's a great guy from Smash Lots. But that's just how I feel about it. I think it's really important to source things that sell fast. I've realized that more and more in this last probably like 3 to 4 months. I've learned a ton of just like when you're buying in this quantity and you're putting out that much cash, like selling through quicker than you're used to. Like is one thing when you're doing one-off things from thrift stores that have high dollar values, and you can just kind of sit on and wait for that max dollar because it's a unique item. This is not that game anymore. When you start to scale and get that, the sell-through becomes way more important. Keeping the cash coming through, still making the profit, but keeping it steady and balancing that. It's a huge balancing act. And I think that was the stuff I really struggled with in 2018 and learned a lot from, was just that balance, right? Of getting enough inventory in, getting it processed in a steady fashion, getting it listed in a steady fashion to hold momentum, getting cash flow coming back in a steady fashion that replenishes in the right time frames, like all of those balancing. It's business 101, but it's simple concepts, difficult to execute, I think is the best way to say it. Like it's simple equations to break down and figure out, simple to run the numbers and figure out, difficult to execute in real time. And that's what I've spent a ton of time learning in 2018. But anyways, getting back to successes, the sales and the supplier were 2 huge successes for me. To give perspective to gross sales too, I do want to touch on that. So I did just under 100K this last year. Right now, as of the middle of February, I'm on pace to do like 175,000 this next year. So that should give you some perspective into like the steep curve at the end of the year. Like as I ramped up, from January, February, March, April, May, June, we're all thrift store sourcing pretty much. It was all my old model. I just started to outsource, I think in like April, like just like scratch the surface of outsourcing, like some photography stuff, some listing stuff, growing pains of figuring out ink frog, figuring out how to drop off stuff, all those growing pains that come around with like creating workflow as someone who works full time, and you can't be there to watch employees. So you have to give it to them to take and get back, all these moving parts. So like January through June was like old model. June through December was trial and error and me banging my head off the wall, figuring out what works and what can I make work and how can I make it work for my schedule and still have a life. And I failed at a lot of that, right? And like I made tons of mistakes, but that was how I learned. So just perspective on the sales though is like that was really a steep curve up at the end of the year. And right now, like I said, projected at a run rate, like a flat run rate, if it held true, which like January, February historically aren't fantastic months for me. They're always solid months. Like, but so, like 175K pretty much run rate right now. And my guess is that I'll eclipse the 200K mark this year. Just simply from like a growth perspective, you think about that I'm listing double what I'm selling, et cetera. So yeah. Someone just asked a question. I'm going to grab questions as they come through here. I'll try not to derail it too much because I do want to get through things here. Someone said, do you do the pricing or the VA does it? So great question. So originally I was doing all the pricing. So my old workflow was photographers take this physical inventory, photograph it, load it to Dropbox. VA takes the photos from Dropbox, creates a listing in InkFrog. I reviewed the InkFrog listing, set the price, and set it live. I've been working with this particular VA since last May, June-ish timeframe, so over a half a year, and she's absolutely fantastic. She's a writer, like she has the perfect background. She's sold on eBay longer than I have. She knows the platforms better than I do. I trust her completely with the pricing, with everything, which is a huge relief and burden for me. So she actually now, new model, does everything. I mean, literally lists on, and actually this separate video, but I'm not selling him a card temporarily right now, just because it's just not worth the investment for me to cross-sell and pay to have it cross-sell right now. The sell-through is not good enough. But in any case, she's putting it on eBay, Poshmark, setting the pricing, everything, start to finish, from photos in Dropbox. I don't worry about it. Someone has asked, are you expensing inventory at purchase, end of year, or when you sell? I'm kind of confused with that question. So from an accounting perspective, it's a cost of goods sold when the item specifically sells. And I track individual costs of goods pricing using the custom SKU field and InkFrog. I expense like damaged inventory, like my waste gets rolled back into my cost of goods. But then any inventory is not sold, you can't really expense. That's a part of your inventory. So, all right, I'm going to jump back to this. I'll take more questions. You can keep just dropping in the chat. I will grab them as we go. So that was 2 wins. Another big win was that I was able to outsource photography. Like, to give up control of that piece was really hard for me, right? When you go from a single, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate, when you go from a single person operation where you do everything, right? You find the items, you clean the items, you prep the items, you photograph the items, you do all of it, right? Like, you're start to finish, it's your baby. You know how it's going to be. You know how it's going to have to teach that to someone else, even if they have some experience in it, to get them to do it the way you want it done with consistency was a lot more challenging than I thought. I took the approach early on. I just tried a bunch of different people, gave them rough instructions, tried to coach them along the way. Some of it worked, some of it didn't, some of them improved, some of them didn't. I think I had 10 different photographers total over the course of last year. Some did really good jobs for me. And then I've really tightened up kind of my processes of like how I'm like really only working with photographers who have actual businesses as photographers now, which has made it really convenient for me from a tax perspective, from an invoicing, from everything. That's like a true business to business relationship, not employee to business relationship. So I've really done a good job of slimming down to that. And, that was a huge win for me. And I will say, like, I failed at that bad last year. Like, I failed at maintaining quality, and it definitely hurt my sales. Like, I should have made more money last year. I should have broke 100K. Like, I should have made more money. I should have had a better sell through. But I pretty much just had to fall flat on my face doing it and learning it to be able to do it. It was one of those things where it was like, no matter how much I read about it, no matter how much I planned for it, just doing it was the only way I was going to learn. Seeing the mistakes, seeing the themes of the mistakes, figuring out how to coach someone up the right way, but still keep them motivated to do the volume, finding out how to consistently get them to come through the volume. Like, all of that, it just took doing it to figure it out. And it was difficult. It was not easy. But that was a huge win for me. I think I have a really good system right now. I'm back up to 4 photographers, really making a push to ramp back, this new year. My sell-through is the best it's ever been right now. The quality is going to be the best it's been right now. So yeah, photography, outsourcing that and letting go of that and figuring out a process was a huge win. Obviously, I've kept touching on like the VA piece. That was a massive win for me in 2018. And honestly, I can't even take like all the credit for that. Like, someone in the chat said, how do you find your VA? My first suggestion would be post an ad. Like, either use Upwork, like Chris on Daily Refinement uses Upwork, and he's had a great success with it. I'm using someone local here, like in the States, and they happen to be like, at the time they're in Raleigh, now they're not, but it didn't matter. But they reach out to me. So like, I got super lucky. Like, I don't even want to take credit for it because I got super lucky. They reached out. They saw that I was trying to scale. They saw the need. They saw how they could add value. They asked me. They proposed it. And it's been awesome. And hopefully, as I keep growing, they'll keep growing with me. And I think I got really lucky. I don't want to take credit for that. But if I was like starting from scratch and trying to find someone, I would probably start with Upwork. And then I may post like local college stuff, like writers and people who have an eye for like detail and things like that. Aaron just said finding reliable people is difficult without micromanaging them. Yeah, I totally agree. One of the things I figured out is the VA piece to me is really important to find someone steady, because that's the more difficult piece to teach. And that definitely is a reflection on me, is not being able to coach and teach well. But it's different if you're like in a dedicated warehouse space where you're interacting with them every single day in person to coach and teach, because that's very easy. But to do it remotely is a whole different ball game. It's just not as easy. So having the consistency there is a big deal. The photography is kind of like, I could cycle through photographers nonstop. I feel like I can ramp that up pretty quick and teach them pretty quick. Especially now that I've made all the mistakes that I've made. Oh, I left my water over there. Dang. But yeah, I mean, for photography, I don't mind as much the the turnover with it, because I feel like now I've gotten a good handle. I've made so many mistakes, I can figure it out now. Someone's asked, how do I go about hiring photographers? I honestly post on all my local Facebook groups, and I say work from home position, paying up to $20 an hour, piece rate, 100% contract position, equipment required, iPhone, so I make sure they have the square setting for Poshmark, reliable internet connection, ability to download the app Dropbox, and have to be able to meet once a week. And I just start with that. And then I let them message me on Facebook, and then I can filter through and check profiles and see who I want to interact with. And then I go from there. I mean, it's just casting a big net and whittling it down. Aaron said, keep making mistakes so we don't have to. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's one of the big reasons I like doing YouTube is like, I want to see people succeed. Like I love getting messages from people who are growing their business. Like, hey, I watched your video from a year ago. Love the content. Got me into selling suits. Got me into selling this. Doing awesome. Blah, blah, blah. Like those messages are great. Like that's the only reason I still make content. Like Aaron made the comment about like YouTube AdSense revenue. And it's just like, yeah, it's, I mean, I think, so I just finished my taxes, like finished loading all my stuff. My Google AdSense was like $2,400 for all of 2018. So like perspective for like, my size channel, the consistency, like it's not anything. The hours I put into this do not equate to the hours that I could put in my business from an ROI perspective. Let me at least say that. Someone asked what webcam I'm using. I'm using a Logitech. It's an HD 1080p. I actually don't know the specific model. Got it like a couple of years ago just on Amazon. It was like a $30 or $40 webcam. All right, so that's 4 things. So I kind of capped on gross sales, getting my supplier, outsourcing photography, the VA for outsourcing all of my listings start to finish. Selling on multiple platforms was another big win for me. So I had historically just been an eBay seller. That was all I did, one trick pony, which isn't a bad thing. But when you can sell the same inventory and get it in front of more eyes on multiple platforms, I've just really realized the power of that. And again, like shout out to Chris over Daily Refinement. He really put me onto that. Like, I trust him a lot, and we have a relationship from a while back, and he kind of blazed that path for me, and so I had a lot easier learning curve because I was able to pick his brain about it. So definitely grateful for that, but it still was a win for me, and being able to outsource onto 2 platforms, and then I was doing 3 until the new year, and about 2 weeks ago I stopped Mercari. But being able to do that was a huge win. Like figuring out how to list the same inventory on 2 platforms and how to manage when it sells on one, delisting on the other. Like my VA 100% does that. She's fantastic at it. That was a huge win for me. And then the last was not related to reselling, was my rental property. So finished the first full year of that being rented out, cash flow, no problems. First year as a landlord. And then even at the end of the year, cycled out the current tenants, which are my friends, got brand new tenants who I don't know, locked in the lease, and we're into February and off we go. So entering year 2 of that, have really learned the ropes of that, made some mistakes, but hey, like it's the only way to do it is just to learn. So that was a huge one. Those are really the 6 big successes I wanted to talk about. But I do really want to spend a lot of time on the failures because I think that's where I can add the most value here. And I am someone, for anyone who's followed my channel for long enough, or I have no problem admitting my mistakes. Like to me, my mistakes have helped me learn. Like my flaws help me learn. Being able to just own them and deal with them, like it helps you to just, I don't know, it's kind of like liberating just to share them because they're not like ghosts or secrets. It's like, this is just like what I failed at. Like, and so I touched on the first big failures. I failed at standardizing quality of my store. There are listings, like if you went to my eBay store and on the listings, you'd be like, what is that doing up there? And like, I'm in the process now. This is the painful process. So there are certain items that there are so many quantity of it. Like, 20, 30 quantity deep of a single listing, like it's now worth it for me. I need to go back individually and photograph them and replace the photos. Like they're that bad that I'm going to have to go do that over the next month or 2. Like there's just a reality of, and a consequence of scaling as fast as I did. But it was like one of those things. And I'm going to pair back to this with the failures is I found an opportunity to this supplier. I had no means or infrastructure to take on the volume that he needed me to take on, but I just jumped and I was like, you know what, this is my shot. I'm going to take it. Like I'm just going to figure it out as I go. And these failures are a direct reflection of that, right? Like most of these I'm about to live, they are a reflection of me just taking a shot at something, taking a chance, being willing to fall and stumble, but come out on the other end and figure out the process. So I just want to give that perspective as you think about this and as I'm sharing these failures, because that's really what happened. And that's what, sometimes you just have to do if you want to get to that next level. And if you don't want to get to the next level, that's fine too. Like a lot of you might just want to be a person who thrifts and flips and makes a good side income, and you don't want to grow. Like there's nothing wrong with that either. Like it just depends. You have to match the chances and risks you take with the ambitions that you have. And so for me, I've always wanted to grow a big business. I've wanted to grow a big reselling business. I wanted to grow a big real estate portfolio. That's been my goal for several years, and I haven't stopped charging after that. So that's just kind of the reality for me. So quality of photos is one big failure. I mean, just monster failure, honestly. Maximizing my inventory. And so I want to dive a little bit into detail on this one. So when I first got the pallets, the first batch was like a home run batch. Like it was half the inventory was in plastic. I mean, I'm talking like $100 Under Armour coats, like hunting gear. Like it was amazing. Waste rate was probably like 5%. It was really, really good. So in my head, I was like, oh, this is what I'm going to be getting from them. And then the next one was a little less quality, a little more waste creeping up, more middle of the road items, still profitable, but not those all that many home run items. And then the third batch was like 10 to 12% waste, mostly middle of the road items. Then the fourth batch was like middle to low end with still a decent amount of waste. And I really started to realize as I look back and reflect this year, not holding out and maximizing the profit on the home run orders really hurts when, like, if you fast sell that too much, then it kind of hurts you when you have to deal with some of the middle of the road stuff. And you're right, you got to remember with liquidation, right? I'm agreeing to take on a volume. I don't get to pick the stuff I get, right? I can pick the genre. I know the stores it's coming from. Like I know the retail store I'm buying from. Like I don't say it out loud, but like I know which one it's coming from and it's good stuff. Like I know what they sell there. So I have a fairly good idea of what I'm getting, and it's very risk calculated. But it's definitely ebbs and flows. And like I mentioned before, like I will be getting a North Face liquidation here soon, like a big North Face liquidation, which will be all home run items again. So it's kind of like these peaks and valleys. But what I did a poor job of was maximizing the peaks and minimizing the valleys. I've learned a lot better now about when to lot items together, right? So instead of trying to single sell something that's like a break-even item, I've started lotting a lot of them together, 3-4 a piece. It's helped increase the value of the sell-through, the average sell price per transaction, which reduces my costs. Little tweaks like that where I need to maximize. I've also figured out, here's the other big piece of this. I'm getting 10 to 12% waste on average in most pallets, but I can reduce probably 6% of that by removing tags, cleaning and washing. Someone just looked at the Umbro shin guards. Yes. Yeah. And you'll see varying levels of quality, right, across photographers with the shin guards. So someone just commented, I have a bunch of shin guards listed in my eBay store. You'll find some that are really well photographed, some that are kind of middle of the road, and some that are terrible. And you can see the variation in all those the different photographers. You'll also see different backdrops, which now I have all standardized backdrops moving forward. Everyone uses the same one, same look and feel, everything, which I also think is very important. But anyways, going back to maximize inventory, I figured out ways now where I was throwing out a lot of the waste, not even spending time on it. Now I figured out when I sort the pallets, like, okay, here's premium, goes in these bins, immediately goes to photographers, by item type, by genre, good, go. I have middle of the road stuff, which is like, needs a quick wash, right? It's new without tags. Maybe it has a little dirt from being in the bottom of the box or, wherever it was being stored. Quick wash goes there. And then I have another pile that's like small tears, worth listing, but notate the flaws. And then you have the, here's my pile of like, goes to the garbage, like not even worth donating, hits the cost of goods line, it's returns and allowances, line, boom, good. That adding that extra 6% back in is huge for profitability, right? When on these big orders. So if I didn't do that early on and I wasted a lot, and that, it definitely hits my bottom line. So that was a huge learning experience for me. And that was, again, a result of just, I'm getting 4 pallets in my garage. Like I don't have a warehouse. I have an attached garage that's half full of inventory. I'm getting 4 pallets and I've got like 12 square feet to walk around these pallets. I'm breaking them down in my driveway, sorting them into bins, pulling them out, cutting them down, moving the pallets. Like I didn't know, and I didn't know the right way to approach it. And so that was just, one of the best tips I've gotten from a couple people, and it's come from a couple different people now, is you need to keep a space dedicated just to sorting and processing, like just an empty space that's empty all the time, because it increases your productivity. It increases your efficiency in grouping and sorting and minimizing fees and listings. And I didn't realize, but it's huge. It's completely critical to scaling. And, as I think about growing and how I'm going to do that, that's really in the forefront of mind. I don't have solutions yet. I think I have enough infrastructure for this year to keep growing. But after this year, I have to really think about how I'm going to approach that, whether that's like a new outdoor shed space or I'm not sure what it's going to be. But it's been eye-opening. Thrifty Nickel is in the chat. Love hearing from you as always. She said, always a wealth of knowledge, Luke. We are still growing at a slow pace, but continue to look up to your knowledge and experience to help us grow. That's awesome. Hey, as long as you're growing forward, I mean, we all are making mistakes. We all are in our own swim lanes. We all have our own niches, our own goals. Just as long as you're aligned to what you want out of it and making sure you're pursuing that and not being influenced by someone else's goals, I think you're going to be just fine. So Brian just said, I would try plate again for the shin guards to sell or donate to a charity that takes soccer equipment to Africa or South America and take the tax write-off of the cost if they don't sell. Yeah, it's a great idea. And, I've thought about that. What I have noticed is, so the shin guards and socks are starting to sell, and some of the photos are a little better. Like I've had the VA cycle some better photos to some of the other listings, and they're starting to sell faster. Also, since I've switched those specific items to free shipping, they've sold a lot faster. I've also been playing around with promoted listings for that. So they're selling, and it's going to be worth it for me to go just take photos of them. That particular order I'm in so cheap. Like that was a very one-off one that was like, he gave me a nice price break on it because he knew like, hey, these are lower end items. They're not the norm, but he gets that once a year and he doesn't want to handle it. So anyways, maximizing inventory was a big failure of mine. Definitely have better processes in place this year. Selling the flawed items to a separate workflow, like just figuring out good ways to handle it and maximize it. I definitely failed at keeping steady workflow for my VA, for my photographers. And when I say steady, I mean like not listing 100 items one day and none the next. Not having 300 listings in 1 week and 150 in the next. Like keeping it like that 25 to 30 a day, 30 to 40 a day. Like I didn't find my rhythm, and I didn't find a good way to manage that, to keep that consistency. And I really, really believe the consistency of having like that steady volume every day makes a huge difference on the platforms. It keeps your store fresh, for the analytics, for the algorithms, for everything. It just keeps it fresh. It's really important. And so I think I'm kind of hitting my stride there. Still have some room to grow, but I'm really figuring things out. And my VA has been a huge help and helped me brainstorm how to attack that and approach that. So someone said, do you think you'll ever move to another reselling business model? So I think that as I grow, Amazon will become a bigger piece of my portfolio. The problem right now is everything I'm buying, I'm pretty much gated in, and I'm not going to get ungated in. And the apparel is really tricky with these brands. And the reason the stuff's available is because Amazon sellers aren't really buying what I'm getting from this guy. And his main customers are Amazon clients, not eBay people. So this is the stuff they can't really sell. So what I would need to do is add a supplier that helps me with Amazon. And I think that that's the only way I'll keep growing bigger, like a lot bigger, is if I add that as a portfolio, because I need to add fulfillment from someone else and storage as a part of my portfolio so that I'm not fulfilling every single item I'm selling, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, steady workflow, I definitely failed at. And my last failure here, and then I'll wrap up, take some Q&A and be done here, is my purchasing decisions. So didn't have a lot of control over my current supplier, right? Like I agreed to take all of it. That's how I got in. It's how I got this great relationship. So like I can't control that. But what I can control is when I choose to pull the trigger on a stopgap order. And what I mean by that is like something from Smash Lots to, fill in, whatever. A couple times I was a little too trigger happy. pulling the trigger on those orders because I was panicking. I wasn't having enough inventory in certain times. And then I got stuck with some stuff that like it was good and I'm still making a profit on it. But it's like I bought too much of it. Like I should have bought smaller orders of it. I got so used to ordering in pallet size, I just kept ordering pallets. And I really should have been more thoughtful about, hey, why don't you buy just like 2 weeks worth of inventory? Because you know your supplier is going to come through with a bigger order soon. And so I just really wasn't smart about that. And I got stuck with some slower moving stuff. I'll still make money on it. But to me, it was a mistake of quantity purchasing. It was just bad. Like, and this all comes back to like that learning how to manage the workflow and the volume and keep it steady, like understanding the cash flows in and out and just stuff that you just, unless you do it, you can't really learn. So yeah, those are my failures. You know, there was plenty of them. But that's my 2018 kind of like in a recap from a business perspective. Tons of awesome personal stuff going on. Like I got married last year. It was amazing. Obviously, I was Shannon. Very, very lucky. We got the new house. Pretty much it was the start 2018 here. So, you know, a lot of good personal stuff. My sister graduated college. Just a lot of awesome life stuff. I mean, so much stuff that would just take too long to list here, but very blessed, very grateful. From a business perspective, very grateful for that too. I mean, just to be able to wake up and have the at bat every day to keep growing it is exciting. So definitely very pumped about it. Trying to get back into more consistent content. I'm away from making promises any longer. I just can make it when I can make it. I enjoy it. So hopefully as I ramp up and keep outsourcing more things, I'll get more time to. But as you've seen from kind of like Chris over Daily Refinement and a couple other channels, like as you grow, this is one of the things that falls off sometimes. So I'll do my best. So I'm gonna take some Q&A right now, probably like 5 minutes worth. And then I do have to wrap up and get downstairs, spend some time with Shannon and gets to sleep. So someone said, you mentioned using a consistent background between photographers. What is it, white or is your vinyl wood backdrop? I use, it's like that standard stock gray wood background. I see it a lot more. Sellers are using it. But it's, it's just like a light gray, wood, cheap vinyl one I bought off Amazon, I think. Someone says, what do you pay your photographers? So I pay them $1.25 per item they photograph, and then 50 cents an item that's multi-quantity. So basically, like if they get 3 of the same shirt, same size, style, they get $1.25 for the first one they photograph, and then 50 cents for the handling of like the bagging and tagging of everyone after that. Someone said, how do you protect your inventory from the elements with an outdoor shed? Is it bagged or on totes? Any tips? So if you look behind me, so I use these bins. I usually have the tops on if it's outside. This stuff's just inside. They go in a 12 by 15 poly bag. I think I link them in my description. I put the inventory number on the tag so I can find it, and then it gets labeled in here. Bins get sealed outside. I've been doing that for 4 years. I used to have outdoor storage units, non-climate controlled. I've never had an issue. They even survived. The hurricane knocked a tree on my garage. It rained into my garage on the bins, on the shelving for a day and a half during the hurricane that hit through here. And they cleanup crew came in, put a huge dehumidifier in there. I had no damage. I only lost like 3 or 4 items. Someone said, would you ever do one-on-one training or group training? I get asked that question a lot more frequently lately. That and like private, would I do a private Facebook group or like a mentoring group? It's tough for me. So this is a weird topic for me. So I feel like there's so much free information out there that's good information that I think anyone who's ambitious enough can get that information as well. I completely understand the access component, like having access to someone who's where you want to be, being able to talk to them every week. Like I was lucky I had that for free from other people who are ahead of me. So I completely understand that aspect. I just don't have the time to, like, if I was going to do it, I'd want to do it right. Like I'd want to give you the dedicated time, the feedback, like the consistent contact. I just don't have the time to commit to that. Otherwise I would love to. I used to, before I really got heavy into reselling, I used to do like business consulting for my old university. And it was like strategic coaching with projects they were doing. And I loved it. Right? I got to work with them every week, help them with their projects. They're consulting for not-for-profits. Absolutely loved it. Super fulfilling. And I think that would have the same type of effect for me as, helping people grow their businesses. I just am spending so much energy growing mine, like trying to keep balancing my family and my 9 to 5 and I'm pretty heavy into CrossFit now, like trying to stay in good shape. They're trying to hear it myself. I just don't have the time, but I'm really like grateful that you even ask. And, you know, in the future, it may become something that I have more time to do as I keep scaling outsourcing, but right now I don't. And so someone's asked, do I pay photographers out of the piece? Yes, I do. Brian said, would you consider buying used clothing and shoes in bulk? Yeah, I mean, I would consider buying anything in bulk that was worth the ROI. I would probably shy away from the used stuff right now at my situation because I have more new attack stuff than I can handle. If I ever got to the point where I can handle all the volume and then I could add that in, sure. Like, I'm not opposed to selling it, and my system is kind of set up to handle it the way my workflow is. But yeah, I just don't. Someone just asked if I ever sleep. Yeah, I sleep a lot. I sleep like minimum 7 hours a night, sometimes up to 9. That's something that I really did a good job in 2018 of fixing. Is I got my sleep schedule back on track. I do CrossFit 3, 4, sometimes 5 days a week. Play basketball once a week. Really cleaned up my diet this last year. My energy levels have really had a positive impact because of that. I've just really realized that regardless how this works out in my business, like being healthy, having energy, when I have a family eventually, like being able to spend time with my kids, that's important. I need to like focus on that. And that's what I've really been doing. Someone's asked if I've ever been to eBay Open. If so, is it worth it? I have not been. I've wanted to go, and every one of my friends who have gone loves it. So I haven't talked to anyone who's like, man, I wish I didn't go. But again, like if you're squeezed for money, like I wouldn't break the bank or to try to go. Like if you have the extra money, you can go, then great. Someone said I look much healthier. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to wrap up though. I appreciate everyone, joining and just watching and catching up with me. Like I said, it's been way too long since I made a video. I've been filming in the background some tutorial videos, some of my palette unboxing stuff. You're probably going to see a lot more non-live video content from me. I think that's how I'm going to kind of hack and give more content, but we'll see where I end up, how many more lives I can do and fit in here. Someone just asked a good question. Said, what's the best advice to someone with a death pile from hell? Commit to listing X amount per day. Like that's, if you're always listing more than you're buying, then your death pile will go away eventually. It's just a math game. You just got to commit to it. Alex said, how many listings do you think are manageable for one person thrifting with a full-time job? So perspective, when I was just thrifting, I was listing 300 new items a month that I was sourcing by myself and listing by myself. I was shooting for 10 new ones per day by myself. I think it can be much more than that if you don't have a lot of commitments outside of your work. But I had a lot of commitments, so that was as much as I could do. Someone said they're just going to network and connect with some wholesalers. Yeah, that's the best way to go. All right, guys, thank you so much. If you don't mind, hit that like button for me. It lets YouTube know this content's good. Also pumps me up a little bit to know that you're at least appreciating the content and makes me motivated to create more. Please leave comments below, good or bad. I like all the feedback. Like ideas, to improve my processes. Like to hear how other people are doing their processes. Share how your 2018 went. I know this is super late, like to the game, right? We're in February 2019, but that's just how I've approached this new year. I'll do a separate video on 2019 goals for sure. This didn't even touch on that. But yeah, that's what's going on. Thank you so much. Hit the subscribe button too so you can get notified when I have new content, and have an awesome night, guys. See ya.